Welcome back to my channel, Scale Model Kit Review Studio, and welcome back to another FanHome Build the Enterprise D. That's right, this is from Star Trek, The Next Generation. This is the largest metal and plastic Enterprise kit out there. Do not pass it up. Head over to FanHome today and subscribe to this build. I put a direct link in the description below, right here, and also above. Let's get started. Let's do a quick review of what I've completed so far before we get started on Pack 16. And there's a lot of stuff I didn't show you in the previous pack. Number one, I forgot to film it, so that's my fault there. But basically this lower frame panel here, frame panel number 5, I believe it is, I neglected to film that, and it did go down the same as number 4. I did do the same technique. Let me zoom in on this for you. And I do realize that it's kind of hard to see, but this is the outline of the frame panel here, all the way over and going up. The key to putting these panels in, at least this is what I found for myself, was to put the 4 FM screws in first, but leave them loose. And then go ahead and put your DM screws in next, going up, working your way up. Now what they did point out was there's a screw that connects the 2 frame panels here on the bottom together, and that's an AM screw that goes right there. Now the next thing I'd like to show you is, and I didn't see this until I watched the playback of the video, and that's when I turned on the lights. And I had all the lights turned off, and you can see all the lights are on. However, let me explain what happened there. Okay, so after I lit it up and I watched the playback of my video, I realized that there was a whole bank of lights that weren't lit up. And that's this one right here. So went ahead and started my troubleshooting for this. And I'll show you what I did, because you can see now I have the lights on, and you can see a comparison before and after. Okay, so that bank of windows is located over here, and I discovered that both LEDs were not illuminated, and they're plugged into this third board that we just installed in the previous pack. Let me give you a close-up. So I started troubleshooting this, and they're actually plugged into this terminal right here, the second one over. It's kind of hard to see because the battery wires are in the way there, but it's plugged into this one. So what I did is I swapped these two out. I went ahead and plugged it into this one because I didn't know if that terminal was bad. And still, I switched them out, and the lights worked for this one over there, and so vice versa. So I did discover the terminals are good, so it could only be the LED. And so I proceeded to try to change those LEDs out, and I'll show you what I did there. Okay, so you can see this is the reflector right here, and I could not get the LEDs removed. Even if I loosened up all the mounting screws and such around there, they just would not come out. So I ended up grinding the LEDs out with a Dremel tool, and the one LED was right here, but I could not get it out, so I just covered it, and I'll talk about what I covered it with. But so I went ahead and took my Dremel tool, and I took off the paint, the silver paint, and I just super glued an LED right here. And then I was able to remove the LED fully on the other end over here, and I super glued the LED in place. Now I used Tulip Slick for this to cover those LEDs. So that's what you have there. And I'll turn it on. So they now work. As you can see, they're lit up. And I need to do a little more light blocking here, but those windows do light up now. So that's my fix for that. All right, I'll talk about one more thing and then we'll get started on pack 16. And the other thing that I did was, and I didn't show this on camera, was I took my tulip slick and I dabbed a little bit on each terminal and plug, just kind of like torque putty would be for nuts and bolts. So in this case, it's just going to prevent them from slipping out. I made sure they're all fully engaged, and then I just applied a little bit of that tulip slick, can't talk today, to those terminals and the plugs, and that would just kind of hold them in place. You don't have to worry about not being able to pull those plugs, those connectors. I was able to do that when I was troubleshooting the that panel with the windows that weren't working. So there you go. And there you go. I hope that helps you out with preparing ourselves for this next pack 16. So let's go ahead and look at the magazine here for pack 16, and then we'll look at the instructions and the parts. Okay, so we will be working on stages 59 through 62. Great magazine here. I love how they did this. And so we'll continue with the episode guide here in the magazine. We're on Season 3, Episode 24, which was aired in May 28th, 1990. Menage a Troy. Very cool there. Season 3, Episode 25, Transfigurations. Season 3, Episode 26, The Best of Both Worlds. That's a pretty popular episode there. Hence, a very large article for it. Very cool. And then they give us a family portrait, The Next Generation Season 4. So Season 4 will begin in the next packs. Very cool there. Let's look at the parts that came with this pack. Stage 59, we'll work on the lower deck panel, put some windows in. Stage 60, once again we have more windows for the lower deck panel and the cover for the battery box on the nacelle. Stage 61, more windows, escape pod covers, another little circuit board, and lastly stage 62, we work on the upper battle section. Let's get started. And here's the parts we received for stage 59. And it looks like here we'll assemble the first vertical saucer panels before closing up the port nacelle to form the unmistakable shape of the Galaxy class warp engine. So we'll work on this deck panel, put some windows in it, and we'll get that going, ready for installation. Doesn't look like we install it just yet. We're going to grab our extra LED that I noticed there was an LED that was not hooked to anything, and I'll show you that when we do this. And we'll work on the nacelle. So we're going to close that up, do everything we need to do to close that up, put our screws into it, and put our cover down that hides those screws. Let me get the parts and I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 59. Let's get a closer look. Here's a close-up of those parts, and here's our deck panel. It is made of metal. That's very cool. We got the windows in that. Very nice. We have the transporter emitter panels. These are photo etched brass, and they do have sticky tape on the back side. Of course, we have our windows, we have our reflector panel, and we have our deflector array panel, and the cover for those screws that go on the nacelle. On the nacelle. AM and CP screws. Here's a close-up of the transmitter emitter pad and our formation lights. This is the red one. It's going to go on the bottom of the nacelle and the mount for it. Now we're going to install these windows into that deck panel, and these windows are a little bit different than what we've gotten in the past. They're a little bit larger, and they have what they call a long lip, and that's on that end. Can you see that? It's kind of angled, and that will need to be installed towards the widest portion of the panel, on the bottom of the panel where it's wider. That's the direction that that longer lip, that wide lip, needs to go in. And there's a view of it from the side. Also, these black ones are painted, so I'm probably going to do a little more light blocking with them on the back side. I'm going to put some black Tulip Slick acrylic paint on the back side. And there you go. You can see the windows are installed. 2 clear ones and 2 black ones. And that's the Tulip Slick I used on the black ones. And we'll simply just put our cover down on top of that. And there you go. I had to correct myself. I had to turn that little reflector panel around so the LED insert is actually on the bottom, and that's how it looks there if you look at it from the side. And the other side looks like that. The phaser array has been installed, and 2 CP screws are used for that. And then, of course, the transporter emitter pads were installed. They have double-sided sticky tape on them. I did take a file and I sanded down the little attachment nubs that were on each end. And that's just a little Tamiya file. Okay, I brought over the upper saucer, and remember I talked about the extra LED that hasn't been mounted anywhere, and that's actually located on the left-hand side. Let me turn these on so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And this is that LED right here. It's a blue and red wire, and you need to pull it through and route it. And it's actually going to go right here, but it needs to go underneath all the frames and come out right there. And you can see it's going to get mounted right here. Take the wires and spread them 90 degrees on each side of the LED, just like shown, and we'll mount that up. Okay, the LED is in place. It's sitting down on top of that little metal block, and if you have the kit, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to mount this hold down bracket on top of it to keep it in place with an AM screw. And there you go, it's in place. You can see that there, and little mounting bracket holding it in place. I'll go ahead and do a light test with it. And it looks like it works. Very good. Next, I'm going to continue with the nacelle, and I'm going to install this formation light, the red one here. And you can see it only goes in one way. There's a flat edge, and that's going to get pressed down inside of there. Don't press it too hard. Just push it in there so it's kind of locked in place. Now this will get installed on the top half of the nacelle. Next, we'll go ahead and route the LED wire like shown here, and it's going to go over these two. It's going to go under, and we'll take the plug from the battery compartment on the lower nacelle and plug that to it. Just like that. Now I'm ready to put the two halves together. And put that down on top. And 3 CP screws were used to hold it together. I really had to squeeze the two halves together real tight to get those screws to grab. I didn't want to over tighten them to strip out threads, so they appear to be snug enough for what I want, but that's how it looks. Now we'll go ahead and put our cover on top, and this is just going to be a press fit. As you can see here, there's some tabs that press fit in place, and that will hide our screws. And that's good there. Looks good. And that's all I do with stage 59. Let's head over and get started on stage 60. And here's the parts that came with stage 60. You can see we have some deck panel and windows, the cover for the nacelle battery compartment, a couple more LEDs. Going to fit 2 deck sections to the underside of the saucer, and then illuminate the completed port side warp engine nacelle, so the left engine nacelle. Do our windows there. Again, I'll do the windows off camera. Mount that panel to the lower frames. Install a few more LED wire harnesses. And install the deck panel we assembled in the previous stage. Do a light test for those. Get a CR2032 battery, put in there, put the cover on, and do a light test. Let me get the parts and I'll be right back. Here's the parts for 60. Let's get a closer look. BP FM screws, a deck panel, and this one is made of plastic. The reflector for it. 2 more LED harnesses, one with a 2-pin, one with a 4-pin. Here's our windows, and now if you notice, these windows are a lot longer than previous windows. And of course the cover for the battery compartment on the nacelle. And there's our deck panel with all the windows installed. These windows are definitely longer than the others, and they do mention the longer lip needs to be towards the wider section of the panel, which is right here, this part here on the bottom. And the longer lip is, I'm showing you a side view of the window, and you can see the longer part is on top there. The reflector panel is installed now. I put 2 BP screws into that on the top side. I'm leaving these out for now because we need to install the LED lights, and that's after we have it mounted up there as we're mounting it to the lower frames under the saucer. But that's what that looks like there. Okay, I brought over the saucer, and we have 2 lights harnesses. The longer one is 60G, so we're going to mount that first. 60G was mounted in this socket here on the larger board, and it's the last row next to the last socket. Socket A, they call it. And then we routed the wires under the frames, and one comes out right here, and the other one comes out on the other side of this frame. and they will basically get planted in these areas on top of those frames, is what they show in the photo, and get mounted to our panel, both LEDs. Both LEDs were inserted into the panel, and I put in 2 BP screws to lock those down. Now they want us to take and bend this over like that. We'll do both that way. Okay, and we're going to mount this next. Take the smaller LED wire harness and plug it in right there. It's the last 2-pin connector on this front row here. You just see it plugged in right there. We're going to route that to the top of this panel here, and it's going to get plugged in right there. Okay, I plugged it into the top of that panel. I used a little bit of Scotch tape, and then I turned it under, and it's going to mount down right there on each side. We also got to slide this panel underneath that panel and mount it also. You can see how both those panels mount together. I'll put those screws in and I'll be right back, and I'll explain what I did. FM screws were used to mount this, 4 down here and 2 up above. Now we'll go ahead and do a light test. And everything looks good. Looks great. Now let's work on the nacelle. Alright, I'm going to put a 2032 battery into this and put the cover on it. And the screw in it to hold the cover in place. We'll turn this on. Here we go. So we have the flashing formation light, and could be the looseness of the contacts for the battery, and I'll fix that. Let me take the battery out and bend some contacts a little bit. Okay, I went ahead and I bent the lower contact up so it has more of a spring action to it, and I'll put the battery in and we'll give it another try. Okay, we'll go ahead and give it a try, and works great. I'll shake it. The battery was definitely too loose. Bending that contact really tightened everything up, and that looks great. It's impressive. Very nice. That completes stage 60. Let's head over and get started on stage 61. Continuing on with pack 16 is stage 61, and we'll work on another deck panel. This time it's the deck panel with escape pod covers. And we also have a new PCB board, a real small one there. And we'll add a Guinean's famous 10 forward bar to the build and fit the outer rim of the saucer, connecting the dorsal deck panels to the ventral ones. There they go. And we'll be fitting that formation light on the front of that panel when we install it on the saucer. And we'll go ahead and do a light test. Let me get the parts, I'll be right back. Here's the parts for 61. Let's get a closer look. DM and FM screws. We have another deck panel here. This time it is made of metal. We have the escape pod covers, and these panels will actually lock those escape pods into position. And we have the very end piece of the edge of the saucer that's made of plastic. And the PCB board. Okay, here's the escape pod covers installed, and that's how they should be installed, with the little red line towards the bottom here. And we have the bracket cover installed on this side, and this is a 61D, which is marked with an L, and 61E, which is marked with an R for the right side. And I put DM screws into that. Okay, we're going to install the edge piece here, just like that. And after it's inserted in, it should be flush on this side. Okay, so we'll put in our DM screws into this. This formation light LED will slide into this holder. Just like that. And then bring over our panel, and it's going to slide into it. Everything's slid in there like it should on top with our formation lens in place. We'll turn this over and put our screws in on the back side. 2 FM screws were installed. Turn on the light. There we go. That still works there. That looks good. I went ahead and turned it over. You can see on this side all the lights are on. It looks great. That completes stage 61, and that's fantastic, I think. Let's head over and do the final stage for this pack. Pack 16, stage 62. Here's the final stage, stage 62 for pack 16. We received more LEDs and also the battle section, upper brackets. Okay, for this stage we're going to install 4 more lights in the saucer sections before starting construction of the main body of the battle section. So the same technique, we're going to take those LEDs, we're going to turn them 90 degrees on each side, and then we're going to install them in 4 places within the saucer frames. And that's all they're showing us here. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put them all in place, and I'll show you what I did. Right there, right there. And then we'll do a light test for all 4 of those LEDs we put in. Then we'll work on the battle section, install some brackets and the PCB board. Let me get the parts, I'll be right back. Here's the part for 62. Let's get a closer look. Here's a close-up of those parts. Here's that battle section frame. And 4 more LEDs. An extension wire. Some metal brackets. They go on the frames. And these are the tabs that hold down the LEDs. AM, BM, and FM. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hook up this power cable, and it's going to plug into this circuit board card right here. There's a 2-pin connector right on the very top right hand corner it's going to go into. Then I need to thread it under, and it's going to come out in between these two boards up here. It's going to come out, the other end of it will come out between those two boards right there. And there it is, plugged in right there. And it's going to be routed underneath everything and coming out right there. Now I'll take all four of my LED wires and I'll bend them out just like that for mounting on the saucer frames. On the middle PCB board, the LED was plugged into socket B, and this whole line of sockets are B. That's right there. And then LED was installed much like the other one we did previously, with the hold down bracket and the LED mounted right there. Okay, all the LEDs are installed, 4 of them there. Pretty easy to do actually. Turn on the lights and you can see they're all illuminated. Very good. Let's move on to the battle section. And for the battle section, I'll be installing these 2 braces and the PCB board. And those braces were installed. Used 2 BM screws for that and 4 FM screws to secure the PCB board. And that's all I do for stage 62. I'll be right back. And there you go. That completes pack 16. This was a blast to build. A little bit of a challenge here and there, but what makes it fun. Installing all those wires and LEDs, doing all the light tests and such, and finally getting done with one of the nacelles. And I must say that looks great. Getting ready to start on the battle bridge, and it's looking good. We're making some great progress here. If you haven't done so already, head over to FanHome and subscribe to this today. I put a direct link in the description below. If you like my content, please subscribe to my channel and smash that like button. Happy modeling, everybody, and take care.